What made the sannin so strong? Sure, they had a lot of different techniques and are always compared to other strong shinobi like the Kage, but how did they really establish their reputation in the ninja world? The answer begins with Hanzo the Salamander, the former leader of the village hidden in the rain. Today we'll be going over exactly how strong Hanzo was back in his prime whenever he was leading the rain village. I've had a lot of people request this in the comments, and personally I didn't find Hanzo to be too interesting at first, but the more I looked into it, the more I realized how slept on this guy has actually been. Like with my other videos, I'll be primarily sticking to manga and direct supplementary materials like the data books and fan books, but I'll include some anime material too where it's applicable, while I roughly go over how strong he was and explain his fighting style and abilities. Before getting started, I'd like to ask if you could leave a like on the video and subscribe. I have a ton of other how strong is or how strong was videos on my channel you can check out after this one. With that being said, let's start by going over what really went down between Hanzo and the sannin. As most of you probably know by now, Hanzo was a prominent shinobi from the Land of Rain who founded the Hidden Rain Village and dreamed of uniting all 5 great nations under his rule. As most of you probably agree, uniting all 5 great nations who are constantly at war and conspiring against each other would be a nearly impossible task. The closest anyone's ever gotten to this was Naruto during the war arc, but even then that was only because of the massive threat presented by Obito, Madara, and Kabuto, who the Kage had to join their forces to even take on. This would obviously require somebody incredibly strong, and Hanzo just might have been the man to do it if he hadn't dulled, quote unquote. This eventually led to the Rain Village taking part in the Second Shinobi War, where Hanzo eventually encountered and fought the sannin, who at the time were just Leaf Jonin, Orochimaru, Tsunade, and Jiraiya. A lot of people are familiar with the outcome of this fight, but tend to overlook the actual context of the battle. For one, Hanzo was by himself facing an entire platoon of Leaf Ninja led by the sannin, and everyone there had been killed but them. And the only reason this battle was even considered an accolade for them was because Hanzo was just really impressed by them managing to survive his onslaught, and in turn decided to spread stories about their strength and bravery. So if anything, the real conclusion here would be that Hanzo can easily stop the 3 sannin at any time. A lot of people will point out that this encounter occurred during the Second Shinobi War, and the sannin were much younger than when they actually appeared in the series. And while it's true the sannin would later go on to greatly improve their skills as shinobi and expand their arsenals, if Hanzo fought them when they were closer to their physical prime, Tsunade during part 1 remarks that Kabuto's skills exceeded her own in her prime, referring to her time in the Second War. While Tsunade was rusty at this point before reigniting her will of fire, even when she did, it's implied in the second data book that she simply returned to the level of strength she was at back when she fought Hanzo during the Second Shinobi World War. We also get similar implications of physical decline in Orochimaru's case, with his fear of aging constantly being alluded to with his remarks towards Hiruzen during their fight, before he tells us outright that he invented the body transfer jutsu to get around the inevitable physical decline that comes with aging in the real world in Naruto. While we don't have the same direct implications of physical decline in the case of Jiraiya, he expressed outright inferiority to Hanzo after hearing Pain defeated him and expressing utter disbelief at the notion that anyone could defeat a shinobi like Hanzo. This is also after mastering his Sage Mode and encountering opponents like Orochimaru, Kisame, and even Itachi. He finds it unbelievable that Hanzo could ever be defeated. If you think Jiraiya is the strongest sannin, then this would obviously just scale Hanzo over the other 2 sannin, but if you don't think that, you have to at least think that Jiraiya is relative to the other 2 sannin through all the narrative implications that they're all around the same level. Sources like the second fan book have also compared Hanzo to other legendary shinobi like Sakamo, Kakashi's father, the White Fang, and Minato the Yellow Flash, who have both been said to be stronger than the sannin on many different occasions throughout the manga and data books. I just want to clarify it really quickly. This last bit is not meant to imply that he is literally invincible or superior to Itachi or comparable to Minato. This all I'm just using to imply that he is at the very least beyond the likes of any sannin we've seen individually. This would easily make Hanzo one of the strongest characters in the series and the ninja world at large during his day. But to help you guys understand why, I'll have to briefly go over how strong the sannin were. So if you've seen my other videos, then you know I've already gone over how strong the sannin were in a lot of detail, but I'll try not to dwell on it too much here. However, it is important in helping us understand how strong Hanzo was, since he was even stronger than them. If you've seen the older videos, then you know it's been said many times throughout the manga, databooks, and fan books that the sannin are all comparable in terms of their overall strength as shinobi. This means they're all comparable to the Orochimaru, who was able to fight on par with old Hiruzen during part 1. A lot of people like to point out that Hiruzen was mentally nerfed and holding back for most of the fight. However, it's made clear many times in the second data book that Orochimaru was also holding back and playing around during the fight. It's also indicated in many sources outside of the fight that Orochimaru is stronger and more talented than Hiruzen, like the first data book, which says that Orochimaru is strong enough to declare that he is stronger than Hiruzen, and the anime profile guides where Ebisu questions if Hiruzen was really a match for him. This is incredibly impressive, seeing as Hiruzen, even as an old man while at a disadvantage against Orochimaru, is considered by many sources like Kabuto, who spied on all 5 nations and the databooks, to be the strongest of the 5 Kage. This would by extension also mean Hanzo is superior to the Kage and most other shinobi in the world. I also want to point out that in chapter 120, we see mentally nerfed Hiruzen doing combat with both Edo Tobirama and Edo Hashirama, and an onlooking Anbu seeing the high level ninjutsu contest says that this is what it takes to be Hokage. That's important because Kabuto's statement directly says that the Hokage's reputation is to be the strongest of the 5 nations, meaning that mentally nerfed Hiruzen, if anything, should also still live up to this reputation and be stronger than the 5 Kage at the time. You can also maybe stretch this to the war arc whenever Hiruzen interacts with the Guru statue and the 5 Kage couldn't defeat it, considering that the data book says this is where his professor title is fully on display, which also comes from his reputation, and the 5 Kage said that they have been throwing big attacks at Guru. Although, to be completely fair and to be completely transparent, the 5 Kage were drained from fighting Madara, and while they did get a heal from Tsunade, it's virtually unquantifiable how much that heal was actually for. That is all obviously under the assumption that you think Edo Hiruzen is weaker than or as strong as alive Hiruzen. This is also supported by the many comparisons made between the sannin and the Kage, that they were just as strong as the Kage at the time, if not stronger. This is also supported by other stuff I've gone over in the past, like Orochimaru killing Rasa, the 4th Kazekage, and all the implications that the sannin were considered the strongest ninja at the time of part 1. It's also pretty crazy if they hold this reputation for just having survived a fight with Hanzo. However, this just brings us the question of how much stronger is Hanzo than the sannin, and the answer comes with his battle with Nagato, which requires us to talk a bit about Hanzo's prime, quote unquote. Like many other characters in Naruto, such as Hiruzen and the San and Itachi, Hanzo also had a prime, but while the decline of the people I just mentioned was for physical reasons, the circumstances behind Hanzo's decline was much more complex. During his fight with Mifune, Kishimoto often uses an analogy of a dulled blade to explain how Hanzo losing sight of his goal and resolve as a shinobi caused him to decline as a shinobi. It's even implied the only reason he lost to pain was because of this decline, which Nagato himself also says. Hanzo standing a chance against pain can also depend on how you interpret Sage Jiraiya's performance against Pain. While Pain was clearly superior to Jiraiya during their fight, he clearly struggled to beat him, with the weekly release of the manga even saying as much as the Jiraiya nearly defeated Pain with his Toad Song Genjutsu, and Hanzo was superior to Jiraiya. He may be capable of doing the same or better against Pain in his prime. I do want to point out really quickly that I'm not saying Jiraiya is superior to Pain or even at the same level as Pain. Simply that Jiraiya, if all 6 Pain bodies were out and he used a Toad Song Genjutsu, may have been able to pull off a victory there. Not that he actually scales the Pain or is as powerful. The last thing I want to touch on before I get into Hanzo's abilities are some small misconceptions about how strong he was. Some people take the context surrounding his fight with Pain further and attempt to use his encounter with Nagato to compare him to the rejuvenated Nagato who pressed Naruto and B after using the latter's chakra to restore his body. While this may mean Nagato regained the physical capabilities he had against Hanzo, all that happened in their first encounter was Nagato rescued Konan. Hanzo snared him with a fire-style trap he'd already set up. Nagato still got away and then summoned the Ghetto statue to fight for him before Hanzo evaded his chakra dragon and escaped. So there isn't even a way to physically scale Hanzo to prime Nagato, quote unquote. Nagato's mastery over the Rinnegan was also pretty questionable at this stage, as it's implied Obito taught him how to use its abilities, and before that we'd only ever seen him use it instinctually. So Hanzo's encounter with Nagato ultimately doesn't go anywhere for either of them. Some people also try to take statements from Chiyo out of context by saying she and Hanzo were rivals in the past, but all she says is that when the rain battled the sand, she would heal people after he poisoned them within her capabilities as a medic. It also wouldn't make much sense as Hanzo doesn't ever acknowledge Chiyo's skills as a shinobi like he did with the sannin just for surviving an actual battle with him. And she, like most other ninja, is considered to be inferior to the likes of the sannin. So with that being said, it's very clear Hanzo was well beyond the likes of the Kage, and he may even have stood a better chance against Pain than Jiraiya did if he fought him in his prime. So that brings us next to Hanzo's abilities. Like many other shinobi who are hailed as the strongest in the world, such as the sannin, Hiruzen, and the other Kage, Hanzo also has a very diverse and unique arsenal which really suits him as the leader of his own territory, the hidden village in the rain. His techniques mainly are derived from his affinities for poison, his salamander, and his use of terrain-based combat underwater and with fire-style traps. Like his name suggests, Hanzo the Salamander was known for his use of salamander poison, which he himself produces thanks to the poison sac he had implanted inside of him as a child. Because of this, Hanzo himself is toxic and needs to wear a breathing mask in order to prevent the toxin from affecting him and anyone who breathes within the vicinity of Hanzo. He, interestingly enough, also has a resistance to toxins because of this, including his own. However, while his salamander poison could affect him if he gets reckless, he has been shown to carry an antidote with him. His poison sac also makes him incredibly hard to kill, as if it gets pierced, it spews toxic gas everywhere. His poison, by comparison, is also pretty crazy. Once inhaled, it numbs and paralyzes the target, and they can die within 2 days. This, minus the lethal effect, works similarly to Orochimaru's blood poison, which once inhaled causes the target to grow numb and become paralyzed. And like Hanzo, Orochimaru also has developed an immunity to toxins, so it's possible Hanzo's salamander poison is what inspired this ability. It also works similarly to Sasori's poison with the paralytic effect, however it kills the target much quicker in 2 days compared to the 3 days it would take for the victims of Sasori's poison to die. However, Sasori's poison on the other hand is implied to be more advanced and lethal in other ways, seeing as Chiyo could conduct antidotes for Hanzo's poison but not for Sasori's. And while none of these poisons are as deadly as things like Shizune's poison, they're a lot more useful for shinobi since they don't immediately kill targets. Hanzo can also summon his giant salamander, who has the same poison sac as Hanzo, on top of its other abilities like toxic clouds it can spread, and Hanzo can even use it to catch targets off guard by burrowing underground. Hanzo also laces his weapons like his scythe with this poison, so even a single slash can incapacitate an enemy. Hanzo also boasts a lot of skill with the weapon, boasting that no one had ever managed to avoid his scythe before he was resurrected during the war arc to fight Mifune, and this could even include Pain. This would be pretty impressive and further support him being superior to the sannin like Sage Jiraiya, since Pain was fast and skilled enough to counter Sage Jiraiya's Kabari Senbon, which the third data book and him both state was his fastest attack. Hanzo is also shown to be very skilled at using the battlefield to his advantage, with it being said by the third data book that he was unmatched or unparalleled when it comes to underwater combat, which could even further make him superior to shinobi like Tobirama and Kisame, who was even too fast for V2 Killer B to handle underwater. Hanzo is also just as deadly on land thanks to his salamander and his fire style traps, which he can use to lace the ground of the battlefield with if he has enough time to prepare, and we've seen with Nagato that they are powerful enough to blow apart a target's legs. even if they manage to escape the blast. Hanzo also displays good skills with the body flicker technique, an ability used by shinobi where they enhance their travel speed with chakra to such an extent it appears almost as if they are literally teleporting, and he's been shown using this technique to easily evade attacks on many occasions, like Nagato's chakra dragon as well as numerous attacks from the sannin in the anime. So like I said before, Hanzo is a pretty versatile shinobi, and his abilities with poison along with his salamander, his skill with weapons, and his abilities to set deadly traps and use the terrain to his advantage whether on land or sea make it pretty obvious why even the sannin would struggle against him. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I've been wanting to cover Hanzo for a long time now, but that's pretty much it. Obviously, I'd appreciate if you left a like on the video if you liked it, and you can subscribe as well. There are other how strong is or how strong was videos on my channel that you can check out now that you're done with this one. But other than that, have a nice day.